I stood in my new kitchen, phone pressed against my ear, grinning like an idiot as I waited for my parents to answer. I had just closed on my first house that morning. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a decent yard in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus. 7 years of saving, budgeting, and sacrifice had finally paid off. My mother picked up on the 3rd ring. "Francis, what's wrong?" Nothing was wrong. Everything was perfect. I told her the news, expecting congratulations, maybe even pride. Instead, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Oh, perfect timing. Your sister Angela and her family can move in next weekend." The words didn't register at first. I actually laughed, thinking she was joking. But my mother continued, her voice bright and matter-of-fact, like she was discussing dinner plans. "We already told them they could live with you rent-free until they get back on their feet. Brad lost his job again, and they're about to be evicted from their apartment. The landlord filed papers last week. Family helps family, Francis. We knew you'd understand." I stopped smiling. My hand tightened around the phone. "Mom, what are you talking about? I never agreed to this." "Well, you have the space now. 3 bedrooms is plenty for you and Angela's family. The kids can share a room." "Mom, this is my house. I bought it for myself. I never said anyone could move in with me." Her tone shifted, disappointment creeping in. "Don't be selfish, Francis. It's just temporary. A few months at most. Your sister needs help." My father's voice joined in the background. He must have picked up the other extension. "We raised you better than this, son. This is what family does." I felt my chest tightening. "Dad, I understand Angela is having problems, but I just bought this house. I have a mortgage. I have my own life to build here. And your sister has 3 children who are about to be homeless," my mother snapped. "How can you be so cold?" I tried to explain. I tried to make them understand that this was a boundary issue, that I had worked hard for this, that I deserved to enjoy my own home. But every point I made was met with guilt, manipulation, and accusations of selfishness. Finally, I said I needed to go and hung up. My hands were shaking. I looked around my empty living room, at the freshly painted walls I had spent the previous weekend working on. This was supposed to be a happy day. Instead, I felt ambushed. An hour later, my sister Angela called. She was crying. "Francis, please, I'm begging you. We have nowhere else to go. The kids are scared. Brad's been looking for work, but nothing's come through. Mom and Dad said you'd help us." "Angela, they shouldn't have told you that without asking me first. So you're just going to let your nieces and nephew be homeless? What kind of uncle are you?" Then Brad got on the phone. His tone was completely different from Angela's tearful pleading. He was aggressive, entitled. "Look, man, your parents already said we could stay, so we're staying. We'll be there next weekend. Have the rooms ready. Brad, I never agreed to this. You need to find another solution. There is no other solution. We're coming." He hung up before I could respond. I spent the rest of that evening feeling sick. I called my best friend Tyler, who I'd known since college. He was the only person who understood my complicated family dynamics. Tyler listened to everything, then said, "Francis, you need to stand your ground now, or they'll walk all over you forever. Your family has always treated Angela like she can do no wrong while you're expected to just handle everything yourself." He was right. Angela was 4 years younger than me, and she had always been the baby, the one who needed protection and help. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the one who didn't need anything from anyone. It had been that way our entire lives. I decided Tyler was right. I would stand firm. 2 days later, on Saturday morning, I was at my new house painting the living room a warm gray color. I had taken the day off from my job as an accountant at a mid-sized firm to work on the house. I was up on a ladder, rolling paint onto the wall, listening to music, when I heard a loud engine sound outside. I climbed down and looked out the window. A large moving truck was pulling into my driveway. My stomach dropped. Angela, Brad, and their 3 kids piled out of a car behind the truck. Brad started lowering the truck's ramp. Furniture was visible inside. I ran outside, still holding my paint roller. "What are you doing?" Brad didn't even look at me. "Moving in. Like I said. I told you no. You can't just show up." Angela approached, her face red and puffy from crying. "Francis, please. We have nowhere else to go. Mom gave us a key." "I never gave Mom a key. She said she got one made from the realtor. She said you were just being stubborn, but you'd come around." I felt fury rising in my chest. My mother had somehow obtained a key to my house without my permission. "You're not moving in. Take your truck and leave." Brad finally looked at me, his expression hard. "We're not leaving. Your parents said we could stay, and we have kids. What are you going to do? Throw children out on the street?" By now, neighbors were coming out onto their porches, watching the scene unfold. This was a quiet, family-friendly neighborhood. I had wanted to make a good first impression. Instead, there was a moving truck in my driveway and a domestic dispute on my lawn. Angela's youngest daughter, a 4-year-old named Emma, started crying. She wrapped her arms around Angela's legs. "Mommy, I'm scared." The other 2 kids, a 7-year-old boy named Jackson and a 9-year-old girl named Sophie, stood near the truck looking confused and frightened. I felt trapped. If I let them in, I'd lose my home and my boundaries. If I forced them to leave, I looked like a monster in front of my new neighbors, and I'd be the villain who made children cry. I pulled out my phone and called the police. Brad's eyes widened. "You're calling the cops on your own family? You're trespassing." 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. They listened to both sides. Brad claimed they had permission from my parents, who he said were part owners of the house. I explained that I was the sole owner, that I had never given permission, and that they were trying to move in against my will. The officers looked tired, like they'd dealt with situations like this before. One of them, an older officer with gray hair, said, "This sounds like a civil family matter. We can't force them to leave if it's a dispute between relatives. You might need to handle this through the courts." "They're trespassing on my property," I insisted. "Do you have a no trespass order against them?" "No, I just bought this house 3 days ago." "Then I suggest you work this out as a family." Brad smirked at me. I felt my jaw clench. "They are not moving into my house. This is my property. I'm the only person on the deed and the mortgage." The officers spoke quietly with Brad and Angela, then came back to me. "Sir, we understand your position, but without a court order, there's not much we can do in a family dispute. If they force entry, call us back. But right now, they're just parked in your driveway." After the police left, I stood facing Brad. "You need to leave. Now." Brad crossed his arms. "Fine. We'll sleep in the truck in your driveway then. Let your nieces and nephew freeze out here. Let's see how that looks to your new neighbors." It was early October. Nights were getting cold. The image of 3 children sleeping in a truck in my driveway made me feel sick, but I couldn't give in. "That's your choice, not mine. You have other options. You're choosing this." Angela stepped forward, her voice rising. "What other options?" "Our parents' house only has 2 bedrooms, and they're too old to have kids running around. Brad's parents won't help. We have no one else. You have 3 bedrooms, and you're 1 person. How is that fair?" "Life isn't fair, Angela. I saved for 7 years for this house. You and Brad have made choices that put you in this position." Angela's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this, Francis. When you need help someday, don't come crying to us." She gathered her children, got back in the car, and drove away. Brad took longer, making a show of slowly raising the truck ramp, locking it, and then glaring at me before climbing into the cab and following Angela. I stood in my driveway, aware of neighbors still watching from windows and porches. An older woman from the house next door gave me a small wave. I couldn't tell if it was sympathetic or judgmental. I went back inside and tried to continue painting, but my hands were shaking too badly. I sat on the floor and put my head in my hands. I thought I had won by standing firm. I thought the worst was over. I had no idea the family war had just begun. Monday morning, I went to work trying to pretend everything was normal. I'm an accountant at a firm that handles small business clients. My cubicle is in a quiet corner where I can focus. Normally, I find the work calming. Numbers make sense. They follow rules. Unlike my family, but that morning I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about the confrontation, about my parents' reaction, about whether I had done the right thing. Around 11:30, my phone rang. Angela's name appeared on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "We're inside," she said. My blood went cold. "What? We're inside your house. We had to do it, Francis." The kids were crying. They needed a home. I grabbed my keys and told my supervisor I had an emergency. I drove 20 minutes back to my house, my heart pounding the entire way. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Angela's car parked there. The front door was locked, but when I opened it and went inside, I found them: Angela, Brad, and all 3 kids. They had broken in through a basement window. Brad was in the process of patching the window back up, like nothing had happened. Air mattresses were set up in 2 of the bedrooms. Kids' toys were scattered across the living room floor. There was food in my refrigerator. They had moved in like they owned the place. "Get out right now, or I'm calling the police," I said, my voice shaking with rage. Brad stood up from where he was working on the window. "Call them. We're family living in a family home. You'll look like the bad guy. Besides, we're already in. Possession is 9/10 of the law, right?" Angela sat on my couch, Emma on her lap. "Francis, please, just let us stay. We won't be any trouble. You broke into my house. We used a window. We didn't break anything we can't fix." I called the police again. The same 2 officers from Saturday showed up. They looked even less pleased to see me than before. I explained that they had broken in through my basement window. The officers went downstairs to look, but Brad had already repaired it. There was no visible damage. The older officer said, "Sir, they're claiming they're family members who were invited. They weren't invited. I told them they couldn't stay, but now they're inside, and they've established residence. You're going to need to go through a formal eviction process. How long does that take? 30 to 60 days, depending on the court schedule." Brad was standing behind the officers, and when they said that, he smirked at me. That smirk made me want to punch him, but I kept my hands at my sides. After the police left, I stood in my living room, feeling completely defeated. Tyler had been right. I needed to stand firm. But now they were inside, and the law was telling me I couldn't remove them. I went back to work, but I couldn't focus. My supervisor noticed and asked if everything was all right. I told her I was dealing with a family situation. She was understanding, but said I needed to keep my work performance up. That evening, when I returned to the house, I discovered something even worse. I had left my wallet in my bedroom, in the top drawer of my nightstand. Inside were my credit cards. I checked my phone and saw alerts. Over $1,000 had been charged to my cards. Electronics from a big box store, groceries, gas, a payment to a pizza delivery service. I confronted Brad, who was sitting in my living room watching my television. "You used my credit cards." He shrugged. "We needed basics. You can afford it. You have a good job. You stole from me. It's not stealing when it's family." I immediately called my credit card companies and canceled the cards. Then I went to my bedroom and changed the lock on the door. It was the only space I could secure. Over the next few days, Angela and Brad became increasingly hostile. They played loud music late at night. The kids, who I didn't blame because they were innocent in all this, drew on the walls with crayons. Brad accidentally knocked over my television, shattering the screen. "Oops," he said. "Accidents happen." I documented everything with photos and videos on my phone. Every piece of damage, every hostile interaction, every theft. I contacted an attorney who specialized in landlord-tenant disputes. Her name was Patricia, and she had good reviews online. Patricia listened to my story and said, "This is going to be messy and expensive. Family eviction cases always are. But you have rights. We'll file the paperwork immediately." The filing fee alone was $300. Patricia's retainer was $2,000. I had to put it on a credit card I barely had room on. I filed the formal eviction notice. According to Ohio law, I had to give them 30 days notice before I could even ask the court for a hearing. When I handed Angela the eviction notice, she read it and started crying. "How can you do this to us? To your own nieces and nephew? You did this to yourselves by breaking into my house." That evening, my parents called. My father's voice was hard and cold. "Your mother and I are ashamed of you. You started this by telling them they could move into my house without asking me. We thought you'd be reasonable. We thought you'd do the right thing. The right thing is respecting my boundaries." My mother got on the line. "If you go through with this eviction, you're no longer our son. We won't have a relationship with someone so selfish." The words hurt more than I wanted to admit. "Then I guess we won't have a relationship." I hung up before they could say anything else. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation got worse. Angela and Brad treated my house like a dump. They left dishes in the sink for days. Trash piled up. The kids spilled juice on the carpet and no one cleaned it up. Brad brought friends over who smoked on my back porch, leaving cigarette butts everywhere. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. I spent most of my time locked in my bedroom or at Tyler's apartment. The eviction hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought once a judge heard the facts, they'd be ordered out immediately. I didn't realize Brad and Angela were preparing their own strategy, and it was far worse than I imagined. 2 weeks into the eviction process, I received my utility bills: electric, water, and gas. The total was 3 times what I had budgeted for. Brad and Angela were running the air conditioning constantly, even though it was October. Every light in the house was always on. They took long showers and left water running. When I confronted them, Brad said, "You're the one who wanted us here. Now, deal with the costs." "I never wanted you here." "Then you should have let us move in willingly, instead of making it difficult." The twisted logic made my head hurt. A few days later, I got an alert on my phone from my credit monitoring service. Someone had attempted to open a new credit card in my name. The application was denied because I had a freeze on my credit, but the attempt had been made from my home address. I immediately knew it was Brad. I went to my bedroom and checked the small file cabinet, where I kept important documents. The lock had been picked. Inside, my Social Security card was missing. My birth certificate was still there, but it had been moved. Someone had been going through my personal files. I bought a better lock and a small safe. I put all my important documents inside and hid the safe in my closet. But the damage was already done. A week later, a credit card arrived in the mail addressed to me. I hadn't applied for it. When I called the company, they confirmed an application had been submitted online using my information, but with a different email address. Brad's email address. I filed a police report for identity theft. The officer who took my report was sympathetic, but warned me. Identity theft cases are hard to prove, especially when the suspect is living in your home and had access to your information. You'll need solid evidence. He has my Social Security card. He used my information to apply for credit. Can you prove he did it, and not someone else? I realized how difficult this was going to be. Meanwhile, my work performance was suffering. I couldn't focus. I was making mistakes in financial reports, missing small errors that I would normally catch. My supervisor called me into her office. Her name was Diane, and she had always been fair with me. "Francis, you're one of our best accountants, but lately your work has been sloppy." I've found errors in 3 reports this month. That's not like you. Is everything okay? I explained the situation with my family. The break-in, the eviction process. Diane listened and seemed understanding, but she also said, "I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but I need you to maintain your standards. Our clients depend on accurate work. If this continues, I'll have to put you on probationary status." The thought of losing my job on top of everything else made me feel sick. Things got worse at home. The homeowners association sent me a letter. There had been complaints about my property, noise violations, trash on the lawn, cars parked on the grass instead of the driveway. The letter threatened fines of $500 per week if the violations continued. I called the HOA president and explained that I was in the process of evicting unwanted occupants. He was sympathetic but firm. "That's your problem to solve. The community has standards. If you can't maintain them, you'll face penalties." Brad had been throwing parties while I was at work. Neighbors had complained about loud music, people drinking in the front yard, and general disorder. My new neighbors, who I had hoped to build good relationships with, now saw my house as a problem property. Then came the worst blow. I checked my bank account one morning and found it nearly empty. Over $6,000 was gone. According to the transaction history, there had been several large transfers to an external account I didn't recognize. I called my bank immediately. They investigated and found that someone had set up online banking access, using my information, and transferred the money out. The transfers were made from my home IP address. Brad had stolen my banking information and drained my savings. I filed another police report. I changed all my passwords. I put additional security measures on my accounts. But the money was gone, transferred to an account that was then closed immediately after receiving the funds. My mortgage payment was due in 3 days, and I didn't have enough money to cover it. I called my friend Tyler in a panic. "I need to borrow money." Brad drained my account. "If I miss my mortgage payment, I could lose the house." Tyler didn't hesitate. "How much do you need?" $1,500. "I can pay you back as soon as my next paycheck comes." "Francis, you don't have to pay me back. Let me help you. I'll pay you back. I promise." Tyler transferred the money that day. I made my mortgage payment, but the bank noted that it had been late. They sent a warning letter saying that if I missed another payment, they would begin foreclosure proceedings. My credit score had dropped. Late payment reported. Multiple credit inquiries from the fraudulent applications. My financial life was falling apart. Then I discovered that Brad had stolen more than money. I had a jewelry box in my closet with a few pieces that had belonged to my grandmother. She had died when I was 16, and she left me her wedding ring and a bracelet. They weren't worth a fortune, but they were priceless to me. The box was empty. I confronted Angela, who was in the kitchen making lunch for the kids. "Where is my grandmother's jewelry?" She looked confused. "What jewelry?" "The ring and bracelet that were in my closet. They're gone." "I don't know anything about that." I saw something on her wrist. A gold bracelet. My grandmother's bracelet. "That's mine. You're wearing it right now." Angela looked down at her wrist, then back at me. "This? Mom gave this to me years ago." "You're confused. That's my grandmother's bracelet. I'd recognize it anywhere. It has an engraving on the inside. Take it off." "I'm not taking off my bracelet. This was a gift from Mom." I reached for her wrist, and she pulled away. Brad came into the kitchen. "What's going on?" "He's accusing me of stealing jewelry." "I'm not accusing. She's wearing my grandmother's bracelet right now." Brad stepped between us. "You need to back off. My wife doesn't steal. You're just looking for reasons to make us look bad." I felt helpless. She was wearing my property, claiming it was hers, and I couldn't prove otherwise without physically taking it from her wrist. The eviction hearing was in 5 days. I clung to that hope. 5 more days and a judge would hear the truth. 5 more days and this nightmare would end. I thought the hearing would save me. I thought justice would prevail. I had no idea how wrong I was. The morning of the eviction hearing, I dressed in my best suit and gathered all my documentation, photos of the damage to my house, bank statements showing the stolen money, credit reports showing the fraudulent applications, the police reports I had filed. Patricia, my attorney, met me outside the courthouse. "Remember," she said, "stay calm. Answer questions directly. Let me handle the legal arguments. You're clearly in the right here." We walked into the courtroom. Angela was there with her own attorney. That surprised me. Attorneys are expensive, and Angela and Brad supposedly had no money. Later, I found out my parents had paid for her lawyer. Angela's attorney was a woman named Susan, and she looked professional and prepared. That made me nervous. The hearing began. Patricia presented our case. She explained that Angela and Brad had broken into my home without permission, refused to leave, damaged my property, and stolen from me. She submitted all my evidence. Then Susan, Angela's attorney, stood up. "Your Honor, my client has a very different version of events." She handed the judge a document, a rental agreement, signed by me and dated 3 weeks earlier. It stated that Angela would pay me $500 per month in rent to live in my house with her family. I stared at the paper in shock. "I never signed that. That's a forgery." Susan continued. "My client has canceled checks proving she has been paying rent as agreed. She submitted 3 checks, each for $500, made out from Angela's account to me. I had never seen these checks before. I certainly had never deposited them." The judge examined the documents. "Mr. Francis, do you deny signing this rental agreement?" "Yes, Your Honor. That's not my signature. I never agreed to rent my house to my sister." Patricia jumped in. "Your Honor, my client is willing to submit to a handwriting analysis. That signature is clearly forged." The judge looked tired. "That will require additional time and expert testimony. Do you have any immediate evidence that this is a forgery?" I didn't. Not in that moment. Susan continued. "Your Honor, there's more. My client reported unsafe living conditions in this property to the city housing inspector. There are concerns about black mold and faulty electrical wiring. My client feared for her children's safety but had nowhere else to go. This was the first I was hearing of any such complaint. That's ridiculous. There's no mold. The house was inspected before I bought it." Susan handed the judge another document. "A housing inspector is scheduled to visit the property tomorrow to investigate these claims. My client believes Mr. Francis is retaliating against her for reporting these safety issues by attempting this eviction." The judge reviewed all the documents. He looked at Patricia, then at Susan, then at me. "This case is more complex than a simple eviction. There are allegations of forgery, but there's also documentation suggesting a rental agreement existed. There are safety concerns that need to be investigated. I'm staying the eviction, pending further review. We'll reconvene in 3 weeks after the housing inspection and after both parties have had time to gather additional evidence." My heart sank. 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks of Brad and Angela destroying my house, my finances, my life. Patricia tried to argue, but the judge had made his decision. The hearing was over. Outside the courthouse, Angela smirked at me. "You can't win, Francis. You might as well give up." I felt sick. I had been so sure the hearing would go my way. How had they gotten a forged rental agreement that looked legitimate? Where did those checks come from? Patricia explained it to me. "They wrote checks to you, but you never deposited them. That creates a paper trail suggesting a rental agreement existed. The forged signature on the lease is good enough to create doubt, and by filing a housing complaint, they're painting themselves as victims of a negligent landlord rather than trespassers. It's calculated. What do I do? We get a forensic document examiner to prove the signature is forged. We cooperate with the housing inspector to prove there are no safety issues, and we wait for the next hearing. I'm sorry, Francis. This is going to take longer than I hoped." That evening, I sat in my locked bedroom feeling defeated. 3 more weeks of this. My savings were gone. My credit was damaged. My job was at risk. My family had turned against me. And now the legal system was failing me too. I didn't think it could get worse. Then my parents showed up. It was almost 8 at night when my doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw my parents' car in the driveway. My father and mother stood on the porch with a man in a suit I didn't recognize. I opened the door cautiously. "What do you want?" My father's face was hard. "We need to talk about the house." "There's nothing to talk about." My mother pushed past me into the house. "We're coming in whether you like it or not." The man in the suit followed them. My father introduced him. "This is our attorney, George." I felt a chill. "Why do you need an attorney?" George opened his briefcase and pulled out papers. "Your parents have asked me to help resolve a financial matter. Approximately 10 years ago, they loaned you $7,000 for college expenses. They're now calling that loan due." I stared at him. That was a gift, not a loan. They helped me pay for my final year of college. It was never discussed as a loan. George handed me a document, a promissory note, with my signature and a repayment schedule. According to this, it was a loan. I looked at the signature. It looked like mine, but I had never seen this document before. "This is another forgery. I never signed this." My father's voice was cold. "Are you calling us liars?" "I'm saying this document is fake. Just like the rental agreement Angela produced in court." My mother stepped forward. "Francis, we're trying to help. We're willing to forgive the loan if you just let Angela stay. Drop the eviction. Let them live here, and we'll call everything even." "No." George cleared his throat. "There's one more thing you should know. According to county records, your parents are listed as co-owners of this property." The room spun. "What?" George pulled out another document. A deed amendment filed with the county, adding my parents as co-owners. It had signatures that appeared to be mine and my parents. I never signed that. I'm the only owner. Check the original mortgage documents. We did. Someone filed an amendment to the deed 3 weeks ago. Until it's proven fraudulent, your parents have legal standing as co-owners. My father crossed his arms. As co-owners, we have the right to allow Angela to live here. So your eviction case is pointless. I felt like I was going to be sick. This is all fraud. These documents are all forged. Brad has been stealing my identity. He's the one filing these fake documents. My mother shook her head. You're paranoid, Francis. These are legitimate documents filed with the county. You're just angry because you're losing, George added. Proving forgery requires expensive expert analysis and court proceedings. It could take months. Meanwhile, your parents' names are on the deed. I'd advise you to work out a family compromise. After they left, I sat on my floor, feeling completely broken. They had systematically built a web of forged documents that would take months and thousands of dollars to untangle. The legal system moves slowly. Proving forgery is difficult, and in the meantime, they were destroying me. I called Patricia and told her everything. She swore under her breath. This is sophisticated fraud. We need to escalate this. I'm going to recommend we get law enforcement more involved and hire a forensic document expert immediately. I can't afford it. I'm broke. We'll figure something out. But Francis, you need to understand something. Your family is willing to commit serious crimes to get what they want. This is beyond a simple eviction case now. This is fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. That night, I went back to my house to get some clothes. Brad was in the kitchen. He had been drinking. I could smell the alcohol. He cornered me near the back door. Your parents are on our side. You're alone. You can't win. Just give up. Get out of my way. He shoved me against the wall. Make me. I shoved him back harder. He stumbled, then came at me again. We grappled for a moment before I pushed him away. He had a small scratch on his face from where he hit the doorframe. I saw him notice it. He smiled. You're going to regret that. I grabbed my bag and left. As I was driving away, Angela called the police. She claimed I had come home drunk and attacked Brad unprovoked, that I was violent and dangerous. When the police arrived at Tyler's apartment, where I had gone, they took my statement. I explained what really happened. But Brad had a visible injury, and I didn't. The officers were the same ones from before. They looked exhausted by my family drama. One of them said, "Maybe you should just stay away from the house for a while. Let this cool down. It's my house. We understand. But for your own safety and legal protection, keep your distance." I felt like I was being pushed out of my own home by the very people who were supposed to protect me. Brad filed for a restraining order the next day. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I sat in Tyler's spare bedroom that night, staring at the ceiling. I had lost everything. My house was occupied by people who hated me. My finances were destroyed. My family had disowned me and was actively working against me. The legal system was failing me at every turn. I had no job security, no savings, no family support, potentially no home if the fraudulent deed stood up, and if I couldn't make my mortgage payments. Tyler found me sitting in the dark at 3 a.m. "Francis, man, you look terrible. I don't know what to do anymore. They've won." Tyler sat down next to me. "No, they haven't won. You just need to fight back. Really fight back. Stop playing defense." "How?" "You've been trying to work within the system, but they're gaming the system. You need to think differently. You need to go on offense." I didn't have the energy to argue, but his words stuck with me. I had nothing left to lose. Maybe it was time to stop being defensive and start attacking. The next week was the worst of my life. I moved between Tyler's apartment and cheap motels, never staying in one place long. I couldn't afford a long-term hotel stay, but I also felt like I was imposing on Tyler too much. Work became impossible. I sat at my desk, staring at spreadsheets, unable to focus. Numbers that normally made sense looked like random symbols. I made mistake after mistake. Diane called me into her office again. This time, her expression was serious. "Francis, I've tried to be understanding about your personal situation, but your performance has declined significantly. I found major errors in the Henderson account that cost us time and credibility with the client. I have to put you on probationary status. You have 30 days to bring your performance back to acceptable standards, or we'll have to let you go." The words felt unreal. I had worked at this firm for 6 years. I had been their most reliable accountant. Now I was one mistake away from unemployment. "I understand," I said quietly. "I hope you can turn this around. You're a good employee when you're focused. But right now, you're not focused." I went back to my cubicle feeling numb. Losing my job would be the final blow. Without income, I couldn't pay my mortgage. Without my mortgage, I'd lose the house. Everything I had worked for would be gone. My bank account showed a balance of $237. My next paycheck wouldn't come for another week. My credit cards were maxed out from legal fees and living expenses. Then I got an email from the mortgage company. They had not received my payment for the current month. I was now 30 days behind. The email warned that if I didn't bring the account current within 30 days, they would begin foreclosure proceedings. I checked my account. I had set up automatic payments, but somehow the payment had been canceled. I called the bank and learned that someone had logged into my account and stopped the automatic payment. Brad. He had access to my banking information from when he drained my account before. Even though I changed passwords, he must have found a way back in. Or he had set up the cancellation before I locked him out. I called the mortgage company and explained the situation. They were unsympathetic. "Sir, we need payment. How you arrange that is your concern. But we need the money." I didn't have it. I called Tyler again. He had already loaned me $1,500. I couldn't ask for more. "Tyler, I don't know what to do. I'm going to lose the house. How much do you need?" $1,800. But I can't ask you for more money. You've already done too much. Francis, you're my best friend. Let me help. I can't keep taking from you. You're not taking. I'm giving. There's a difference. Tyler transferred the money. I made the mortgage payment. But I knew this couldn't continue. I was drowning. The housing inspector came to my property. I wasn't allowed to be there because of the ongoing legal issues, but Patricia attended on my behalf. The inspector did a thorough investigation. His report came back 2 days later. There was no black mold, no faulty wiring, no safety issues whatsoever. The only problems were the damage Brad and Angela had caused to the property. The inspector noted in his report that the claims appeared to be retaliatory in nature. It was a small victory, but Patricia said it would help in court. This proves they lied about the safety issues. It shows a pattern of deception. Meanwhile, the restraining order hearing happened. Brad claimed I had attacked him unprovoked, that I had been drinking, that I was becoming increasingly unstable and violent. I presented my side. I had witnesses, Tyler, who confirmed I hadn't been drinking. I had no history of violence. I had never even gotten into a fight before all of this. But Brad had a visible injury, and I didn't. Angela testified that she had witnessed me attacking her husband. She cried on the stand. The judge denied the restraining order but warned me to stay away from Brad. Mr. Francis, I'm not issuing a formal order, but I strongly advise you to avoid any confrontations with your brother-in-law. If there are any more incidents, the outcome may be different. It was something, but it felt like a hollow victory. My parents called that evening. My mother was crying. Francis, please, just stop this. Just let Angela stay in the house and we can all move on. Mom, they've stolen from me. They've committed fraud. They've destroyed my property and my life. Angela is your sister. She has children. How can you be so heartless? How can you enable this? My father got on the line. We'll drop everything if you sign the house over to Angela. Just give her the house and walk away. We'll forgive the loan. We'll drop the co-ownership claim. Everything. So I should give up everything I worked for and let them win. You're going to lose it anyway. The bank will foreclose. You'll get nothing. At least this way, your sister and her kids will have a home. I hung up without responding. The truth was becoming clear. This was never about temporary help. This was about taking my house permanently. My parents wanted Angela to have it. They had probably planned this from the moment they found out I bought a house. Angela had always been the favorite, the baby, the one who needed help. And I was the responsible one who was supposed to sacrifice for her. But I was done sacrificing. That night, I sat in Tyler's spare bedroom, surrounded by documents, bank statements, police reports, court filings, photos of my destroyed house, evidence of forgery and fraud. I felt completely defeated. My job was hanging by a thread. My finances were in ruins. My family had betrayed me. The legal system was grinding slowly while Brad and Angela destroyed everything. I looked terrible. I had lost weight from stress. I wasn't sleeping. My hands shook constantly from anxiety. Tyler knocked on the door and came in. He found me staring at the wall. It was 3 a.m. Francis, man, you need to fight back. Really fight back. Stop playing their game. I don't know how. You've been defending yourself. But you need to attack. Gather real evidence. Build a real case. Stop reacting to what they do and start making them react to you. I looked at him. What do you mean? You have evidence of crimes. Real crimes. Identity theft. Fraud. Forgery. You've been treating this like a civil family dispute, but it's not. It's criminal. Make it criminal. Something shifted in my mind. Tyler was right. I had been so focused on eviction and property rights that I hadn't fully pursued the criminal aspects. Brad had committed identity theft. That's a federal crime. He had forged documents. That's fraud. He had stolen my grandmother's jewelry. That's theft. He had drained my bank account. That's wire fraud. These weren't civil matters. These were felonies, and I had evidence of all of it. You're right, I said slowly. I've been playing defense. It's time to play offense. Tyler smiled. Now you're thinking straight. I spent the rest of that night organizing everything. Every piece of evidence, every document, every photo, every bank statement. When morning came, I had a plan. I had hit rock bottom, but sometimes you need to hit bottom before you can push back up, and I was ready to push back. The first thing I did was request my original mortgage documents directly from the bank. I needed clean copies of my signature on legitimate documents to compare against the forged ones. The bank sent me certified copies of everything I signed at closing. My signature on the mortgage application, the promissory note, the original deed. All legitimate, all with my real signature. I took these documents and the forged ones to a forensic document examiner Tyler helped me find. Her name was Dr. Helen Carter, and she specialized in handwriting analysis for legal cases. She was expensive, but Tyler loaned me the money. Dr. Carter examined everything under magnification and with special lighting. 2 days later, she gave me her report. These signatures are definite forgeries, she said, showing me the analysis. Look here at the pressure points, the stroke patterns, the letter formations. Whoever forged these tried to mimic your signature, but there are telltale differences. The forged rental agreement, the promissory note, and the deed amendment all appear to be done by the same person, and it's not you. Can you testify to that in court? Absolutely. I'll provide written reports and expert testimony if needed. I now had solid proof that the documents were fraudulent. Next, I went to the police station and asked to speak with a detective about identity theft and fraud. I didn't go to the patrol officers anymore. I went straight to the detective division. A detective named Robert Harris agreed to meet with me. I spent 2 hours walking him through everything: the identity theft, the bank fraud, the forged documents, the stolen jewelry. I showed him all my evidence: bank statements, credit reports, the forensic analysis, everything. Detective Harris listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he said, "This is substantial. You've done good work documenting everything. I'm going to open a formal investigation into your brother-in-law for multiple felonies: identity theft, wire fraud, forgery, and theft. What about my sister? If we can prove she was complicit, she'll face charges too. But we need evidence of her direct involvement. She was wearing my grandmother's bracelet. She had to know where it came from. That's circumstantial, but it's a start. Let me work on this." I also filed a complaint with the FBI. Identity theft is a federal crime. I submitted all my evidence to their Internet Crime Complaint Center. Third, I went back to the rental agreement forgery. Dr. Carter had confirmed it was fake. I provided her report to Patricia, who immediately filed it with the court. We also filed a motion to dismiss Angela's claims based on fraud. Fourth, I dealt with the assault allegation. My doorbell camera. I had installed a video doorbell when I first moved in. It had a wide-angle view of my front porch and driveway, but it also captured audio and had a view into my kitchen through the window. I reviewed all the footage from the night of the alleged assault. The camera had captured everything. Brad and me in the kitchen. Brad shoving me first, me defending myself. Then, clear as day, Brad scratching his own face against the doorframe after I left. I downloaded the footage and provided copies to Patricia and to Detective Harris. The restraining order hearing had already happened, but this footage could be used to press charges against Brad for filing a false police report. Fifth, I contacted the housing inspector directly. His name was Marcus. I called him and explained that the safety complaints had been false and retaliatory. He had already submitted his report, but I wanted to understand what Angela had claimed. Marcus said, "She showed me some photos on her phone. Dark spots on walls she claimed were mold. Some exposed wiring in the basement she claimed was dangerous. But when I inspected, none of it was real. The dark spots were just shadows in the photos, taken at angles to look worse than they were. The wiring was properly installed and up to code. Can you document that she submitted false photos? It's already in my report. I noted that the claims appeared exaggerated and possibly fabricated. Everything was coming together. I had proof of forgery, proof of identity theft, proof of fraud, proof of false allegations. I scheduled another meeting with Patricia. I laid out everything I had gathered. She looked impressed. "Francis, this is excellent work. We now have the evidence to not just win the eviction, but to pursue criminal charges and civil damages. Let me file motions with all of this." Patricia filed emergency motions with the court. She attached Dr. Carter's forensic report proving the rental agreement was forged. She attached the housing inspector's report proving the safety claims were false. She attached evidence of the identity theft and bank fraud. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing for 1 week later. Meanwhile, Detective Harris moved forward with his investigation. He obtained search warrants for Brad's phone and computer. He interviewed neighbors. He pulled bank records. Within 3 days, Detective Harris called me. "We have enough to make an arrest. Your brother-in-law is going to be charged with multiple felonies." When? Tomorrow morning. I felt a surge of hope for the first time in weeks, but I wasn't done. I also filed police reports about the fraudulent deed. The county recorder's office investigated how the deed amendment was filed. They found that it had been submitted online using forged notarization. The notary whose stamp appeared on the document said she had never notarized anything for my family. More fraud. More evidence. My parents called that evening. My father's voice was angry. "What are you doing?" "The police came to ask us questions about the deed. I'm pursuing justice for fraud that was committed against me. You're going to send your brother-in-law to jail. Angela's husband, the father of your nieces and nephew, Brad, committed crimes. He stole from me. He forged documents. Actions have consequences." My mother was crying in the background. "Please, Francis, don't do this. Think of the children." "I am thinking of the children. They should learn that fraud and theft are wrong." I hung up. The next morning, police arrested Brad at my house. I wasn't there, but Angela called me screaming. "They arrested Brad. This is your fault. You destroyed our family." Brad destroyed our family when he broke into my house and committed felonies. The emergency court hearing happened 3 days later. Patricia presented all our new evidence: the forensic analysis, the housing inspector's report, the doorbell, camera footage, the police investigation. Angela's new attorney, because her first one had quit, tried to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, but the judge had seen enough. Based on the forensic analysis and the inspector's report, I'm finding that the rental agreement presented by the defendant was indeed forged. The claims of unsafe conditions were false. The eviction is granted. Sheriff's deputies will enforce the eviction within 72 hours. Angela started sobbing in the courtroom. Her attorney tried to ask for more time, but the judge was firm. The defendants have engaged in fraud and deception. They will vacate the property immediately. I also filed civil lawsuits against Brad and Angela for damages, theft, and fraud, against my parents for their role in the fraudulent deed and for the emotional distress they caused. My parents showed up at Tyler's apartment that evening. My father was furious. "You're suing your own parents? Have you lost your mind? You tried to steal my house through fraud. You sided with thieves over your own son. You enabled all of this." My mother looked broken. "We were just trying to help Angela. You were trying to give her my house. You wanted me to sacrifice everything for her because that's always been the family dynamic. Angela gets help and I get expectations." My father's face was red. "We raised you. We gave you life. We could disinherit you." I laughed, but it was bitter. "Go ahead, disinherit me. I don't want anything from you anymore." They left, threatening more legal action. but I had stopped caring about their threats. 2 days later, sheriff's deputies enforced the eviction. Angela, Brad, and the kids were physically removed from my house. They were allowed to take only their personal belongings. Everything else stayed. I finally walked back into my house. It was destroyed. Holes in the walls, stains on the carpets, broken fixtures, trash everywhere. The damage was extensive, but it was mine again. Brad's criminal charges moved forward. He was charged with multiple felonies: identity theft, wire fraud, forgery, filing false police reports. Each charge carried potential prison time. His attorney negotiated a plea deal. Brad would plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a lighter sentence. 2 years in prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution to me for all damages and stolen funds. Angela was charged as an accessory. She took a plea deal too: probation, community service, and shared responsibility for restitution. The civil case settled as well. Brad and Angela were ordered to pay me $35,000 for damages, theft, and costs. The payment would be garnished from any wages they earned in the future. My parents' fraudulent deed was voided. The county removed their names from my property. My father was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. He took a plea deal to avoid prison, probation, a fine, and he had to pay me $15,000 in damages. My parents' reputations in their community were destroyed. Word spread about what they had tried to do. Extended family members, including my cousin Patrick, cut them off. Patrick reached out to me. "I heard everything that happened. I'm sorry. Your parents were wrong. Angela has been like this her whole life, and they've always enabled her." Patrick became an ally. We started rebuilding a relationship. My mother called me one night, crying, "Francis, I'm so sorry. We were wrong. We thought we were helping family, but we were destroying you. Can we fix this?" I was quiet for a long moment. "Mom, you didn't just make a mistake. You tried to steal my house. You sided with people who were committing crimes against me. You called me selfish for wanting to keep what I earned. That's not a small thing to forgive. I know. I don't expect forgiveness right away. But can we try? Maybe. Someday. But you have a lot to prove first." At work, I explained everything to Diane. The criminal charges, the fraud, the resolution. She listened and said, "Francis, I had no idea it was this serious. I should have been more supportive. You're off probation. Take the time you need to recover." My work performance returned to normal as the stress lifted. 6 months later, I got a promotion. The firm recognized my resilience and dedication. Over the following months, I repaired my house. Insurance covered most of the damage. I spent weekends painting, fixing walls, replacing carpets. Tyler helped me. Dorothy, my older neighbor, who had testified on my behalf, helped too. She became a good friend. The restitution money came in slowly. Brad had to work from prison, earning minimal wages. But some money trickled in each month. Angela got a job, and her wages were garnished. It would take years to recover everything, but at least there was progress. My credit slowly recovered. My savings rebuilt. My life came back together, piece by piece. I learned who my real family was. Not the people I was born to, but the people who stood by me. Tyler, Dorothy, Patrick, my co-workers who supported me. That was real family. A year after I finally got my house back, I stood on my front porch watching the sunset. The house was beautiful now. I had repaired everything Brad and Angela destroyed. New paint on every wall. New carpet throughout. I had even added some improvements. New light fixtures. A renovated bathroom. A deck in the backyard. This house had been a battlefield. Now, it was a home. Tyler came over that evening for dinner. Dorothy joined us, bringing a pie she had baked. Patrick drove up from Cincinnati with his wife. A few friends from work came too. We had a small housewarming party, a real one this time, with people who actually cared about me. Someone asked about my parents. Do you talk to them? I took a sip of my drink before answering. We're in family therapy. It's slow, really slow. They're starting to understand how much damage they caused, but trust isn't rebuilt overnight. My mother sends texts sometimes. My father is still too proud to really apologize. But they're trying, I guess. What about Angela? She's out of my life completely. She never apologized. Not once. She still thinks she was entitled to live in my house because we're family. Some people never learn. Some people never take responsibility for their actions. Dorothy patted my hand. You did the right thing, dear. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. The conversation moved on to lighter topics. We ate good food, told stories, laughed. It felt normal. It felt peaceful. After everyone left, I sat alone in my living room. The same living room where I had felt like a prisoner in my own home just a year ago. Now it was mine in every sense of the word. The restitution money was coming in slowly. Brad was still in prison. He had another year to serve. Angela was working as a cashier. Her wages garnished every paycheck. My parents had paid their $15,000, though it came with resentment rather than genuine remorse. I had recovered most of my financial losses. My credit score was back in the good range. My savings account was healthy again. I had even started investing for retirement. But more than the money, I had recovered my sense of self. For most of my life, I had been the responsible one, the one who didn't need help, the one who was expected to sacrifice for others, especially for Angela. My parents had trained me to believe that putting my own needs first was selfish, that family obligations meant giving until I had nothing left. It took this nightmare to realize that was wrong. I learned that boundaries aren't cruel. They're essential. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. If you accept being walked over, they'll keep walking. If you accept being stolen from, they'll keep stealing. If you accept being manipulated, they'll keep manipulating. I learned that blood doesn't give people rights to your life. Being related doesn't mean they can take what's yours. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. I learned that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. And that's a hard truth to accept. I learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. My mother had said, during one of our therapy sessions, "We just wanted to help Angela. She's struggling." I had responded, "You wanted to help Angela by destroying me. That's not help. That's sacrifice." And I didn't consent to being the sacrifice. The therapist had nodded. Francis is right. Help shouldn't come at the cost of another person's well-being. That's not generosity. That's exploitation. My parents were slowly coming to understand that. Slowly. I also learned about chosen family. Tyler had stood by me when my blood family betrayed me. He loaned me money I desperately needed. He gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere to go. He believed in me when I was ready to give up. Dorothy had documented evidence that helped my case. She testified on my behalf. She became a friend when I needed friends. Patrick had reached out and reconnected with me, offering support and validation. My coworkers had been patient and understanding during the worst of it. These people, not connected to me by blood, had been more family than my actual family. I realized that family isn't about obligation. It's not about who you're born to or what you owe. Real family is about respect, support, and genuine care. It's about people who want you to succeed, not people who want to use you. Looking back, I could see how the whole nightmare had taught me things I needed to learn. I had been too passive before, too willing to avoid conflict, too concerned with being the good son and good brother. I had let my parents' expectations shape my entire life. Not anymore. Now I knew my worth. I knew my rights. I knew how to fight back when someone tried to take what was mine. And I knew that sometimes fighting back is the only option. Some people will take everything if you let them. The only way to stop them is to stand firm, no matter how hard they push. I thought about Brad, sitting in prison, probably still bitter and convinced he was the victim. I thought about Angela, working her cashier job, still telling anyone who would listen that I was the bad guy. I thought about my parents, slowly confronting the fact that their favoritism had driven their family apart. I didn't feel triumphant exactly. I felt relieved. I felt free. I felt like myself again. The house was quiet. Outside, the neighborhood was peaceful. Kids playing in yards, neighbors walking dogs, normal suburban life. This was what I had worked for. This peace, this stability, this sense of home. I had fought for it, and I had won. Not just the house, not just the legal battles. I had won my right to my own life, and that was worth everything. As I sat there, I thought about anyone else who might be going through something similar. Anyone being pressured by family to give up what they've earned. Anyone being told that boundaries are selfish. Anyone being manipulated into sacrificing themselves for others. My advice would be simple. Stand firm. Document everything. Don't be afraid to use the legal system. Don't be afraid to press charges when crimes are committed. Don't let guilt manipulate you into accepting abuse. You have the right to protect what you've earned. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say no, even to family, especially to family. And if they truly love you, they'll respect those boundaries. If they don't respect your boundaries, then they don't truly love you. They love what you can give them. That's not love. That's exploitation. I had learned this lesson the hard way. But I had learned it. I looked around my living room one more time. My house, my space, my life. I had bought this house without telling my parents because I wanted something that was mine alone. Something I had earned through my own hard work. And despite everything they tried to do, despite all the fraud and theft and manipulation, it was still mine. I had won, not because I was stronger or smarter or better, but because I refused to give up. I refused to accept that their version of family meant I had to lose everything. Family is important, but you can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You can't destroy yourself to save people who won't save themselves. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their own choices. Brad and Angela made their choices. They chose to break in, to steal, to commit fraud. Those choices led to consequences. My parents made their choices too. They chose to enable Angela at my expense. They chose to participate in fraud. They chose favoritism over fairness. Those choices damaged our relationship, maybe permanently. But I made my choices too. I chose to stand up for myself. I chose to fight back. I chose to protect what was mine, and I would make those choices again. As the sun set completely and darkness settled over the neighborhood, I felt at peace. Real peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from avoiding conflict, but the solid peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing, even when it was hard. This was my house, my life, my future, and nobody was going to take it from me again. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where family expected you to sacrifice something important for their benefit? How did you handle it? Did you stand your ground, or did you give in? Looking back, do you wish you had done things differently? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories and perspectives. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button. It helps others who might be going through similar situations find this story and know they're not alone. And if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and overcoming family drama, please subscribe. There are so many stories of people who fought back and won, and I want to share them with you. Finally, if you know someone who's dealing with family pressure or boundary issues, please share this story with them. Sometimes people need to hear that it's okay to put themselves first. It's okay to say no. It's okay to fight for what's yours. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helped you in some way. Whether you're facing a similar situation or just needed to hear about someone who stood firm and won, I hope this gave you strength. Remember, you have the right to your own life. Don't let anyone take that from you. Take care of yourselves out there. Set your boundaries, protect what's yours, and never apologize for refusing to be exploited. Until next time.